right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another Good Dude Show. We do hope you enjoy the episode. Please sit back and enjoy the show. If you do get something out of it, if you enjoy it, please make sure you share it with a friend or two and make sure you do the like and subscribe thing in reciprocity. And please enjoy the show. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Yeah, hey, it's good. That's a lot of show enjoying.
I said like 3 times or something.
I think they will then.
Oh, there's Luke, too.
Zippy
Hey, Luke.
Chili, let's fucking go. Nice. Any of you guys got an extra $450,000?
Oh, yeah. Let me get that wallet.
Man, that is crazy numbers for immigrant, for the hassle to immigrants or something like that. I didn't get into it too deep, but boy, that's some crazy fucking money.
Yeah, let me do the screen switch here, but I think it's because what they're doing is I think they're trying to like pay reparations of a sort to people that I guess they say are separated from their family by the evil Trump. Yeah, this is, I guess, the agenda. It's pretty whack though. It's a lot of money. That's especially they gave Americans what $2,000 for. It's insane.
And we learn a lot of the separate. Go ahead.
I was just saying we don't have it. We don't have the funds. So.
I was just going to say that I thought the separations were also like trafficking.
Yeah.
So there's some little paper shuffle. Anyway.
Yeah. I think well, 9 out of...
There's a simple way to stop the separation. Send them all back.
There you go. It's real easy.
I mean, I think the thing is 9 out of 10 of those were like Bryan was saying, they were trafficked. I think what happens is they know that using kids is sort of a backdoor into our system. So they are basically, they're not their kids. They're separating them because they're not children of the people they're showing up with. And then I don't know, like 1 out of 10 of those situations or something like that, it actually turns out to be their kids. So there's an issue. But for the most part, it's child trafficking they're trying to break up.
Pretty crazy. Snack, jump back and forth on the border for infinite money. Not a bad idea. I mean, I don't think it's going to get passed, right? It's just yet another thing that it's kind of like a crazy girlfriend who just keeps bringing bullshit up. So you can never like stay on target. You can never really move anything forward because she's constantly it's beyond shit testing. These are like government shit tests. This is the Biden administration shit test. Well, hey, Kurt's swinging by again.
When people vote against it, then they can call them racist. So, there's that.
I think they're counting on that.
Something that's not racist. How come Bryan knows so much about crazy girl? This is true. That's why I need Kurt as the wingman. I got to go find the good ones. Apparently, all these art school chicks is what Kurt was suggesting. So and I like that they're more productive and creative rather than highly consumptive. I think that was a pretty smart move.
Somebody was joking about that though, that you could like go under the border and then come back in and keep getting cash out. I don't think it works that way, but still, it's pretty outrageous.
Probably got to be a little bit swarthier.
Give a nice tan down there.
You guys see our update when Eli and I posted in North Carolina? I went on a good tour around NC with him. He, of course, had some funny comments.
Awesome. That was pretty cool. I can pull it up if you want, I think.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You want does Kurt want to hop on again? What do we got? I know he's just been totally cranking with the male-female dating. Maybe he has some summaries on it. Looks like he's getting to the end, and it's depressing. We really need to reinvent the marriage market if it's any chance for it.
With
Borders.
though, with Borders, you need to get in as a refugee, and then you get 16 grand cash up front. I think
And then
you're going to pay it back, but you could always dip out and then come back in with another name.
Sounds good.
he got to the it's a pile of shit instead of a pot of gold. Yeah. Well, that's why we need like a good dude's dating service. Go ahead, Martin.
I think he was expecting that coming in.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Philippe's going to the border blackface for free money. And put it in curve, buddy.
Nice.
NJ, you got into Shiba token?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I hope you know when to sell.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a first real take on that, so we'll have to see how I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a noob, so we'll see.
All right. Well, if I hear anything, I'll let you know. But
Please do.
you know, it's just they call them you know, a meme token, so they can make crazy runs.
Yeah. It does have some decent structure behind it, but it's, you know, like you said, meme token. It's probably a little.
Yeah, I mean,
whack.
when you evaluate crypto, the biggest thing to look for is does it produce an income? Does it have a dividend or a yield on it? And does that come from something sustainable? So the most important one is like transaction fees. More than anything, there's transactions happening back and forth, and there's a small they cut out of that that the protocol then can share with the token holders. If it doesn't have that, then typically it's just making money on speculation. So you basically need that was the bigger fool theory is going to buy your bags from you. So if it has a yield, that is great, just like yield bearing stocks, which there's few of them. And then also stocks can play around with their games and then pretend they didn't make money or write off a whole bunch more stuff, or, you know, they could do a bunch of things. But not so easy to do that in the crypto space. And then the next thing is if you can borrow against it. So if you can collateralize it, deposit, borrow other funds to even borrow more, you'll notice that those two things really can drive crypto tokens to go really high. So
I hope you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope you guys kill it in the technological gambling market.
It is that.
It's crush it. I hope you guys crush it. I really do. Because
Yeah.
it's necessary. We could fund a lot of things from those funds. We did get favorable criteria in the Rittenhouse trial.
Yeah.
The prosecutors can't call the people who were murdered victims. That's a tight criteria.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Very favorable.
Where's Eli's comment on that?
I can see her
They
smiling.
also can be called rioters, looters, and arsonists.
They can be called those things, correct?
That's what they were.
Maybe there are some good judges left.
Even in Wisconsin, who knew?
Not me. I didn't know.
Yeah, I saw one clip of the judge getting super frustrated with the prosecution because they were trying to claim that setting things on fire wasn't a threat. The judge just got fed up. He's like, "You got to be kidding me! We're talking about arson here."
No,
From what I
he
gather,
hasn't been
the
sentenced.
trial isn't going as well, but apparently there have been some bright spots there.
Eli, what was that? Which case?
The Charlottesville one, they're suing Kessler and Spencer and Christopher Cantwell and maybe some other people as well.
Right.
Trad Workers Party, the National Socialist Movement. Apparently the National Socialist Movement got like a Democrat lawyer who basically threw them under the bus and spent like the whole opening remarks like testifying against his clients. So don't do that.
Yikes.
But apparently, Christopher Cantwell gave a really good, like, impassioned defense, pro se, and the Trad Workers Party had a really good lawyer that did a lot of good arguments about freedom of speech, that they were legally permitted protest, and that they were working with police to reduce violence, etc. Made some arguments about how they had been attacked before, and so that's why they had shields and armor. So it seems like it's going reasonably all right. There was one exchange where the plaintiffs during jury selection had to claim that the counsel for the defense was racist because they were I can't remember if it was only rejecting black jurors or rejecting any black jurors, but they shot right back with, "Well, you're only rejecting white jurors."
Race realism. It's the new counterculture. You just got to get tuned into it. I like the way Kurt answers it often. Keeps it to neoteny and brain development and impulse control and some of the other stuff. So it's a smart way to answer it.
Well, you don't even need to get into that, but if they throw out the accusation, I mean, it's perfectly fair play to point out that they're doing the exact opposite, the exact reverse.
Right. Yeah, totally. Point that out for sure. A little bit for Philippe. I did see the world's greatest trade. It was absolutely incredible that the guy held it for that long. I'm surprised he didn't cash out when it was $1 million or 10 million or 100 million. But for him to take it up to whatever, 5 billion, is incredible. Now the challenge is that you don't have the exit liquidity. To be very difficult if you did try to sell it, but he could probably just drain it slowly, which would be in like $10 million chunks. Could sell it off. But yeah, guys, that's the type of money that can be made in crypto space right now. And obviously 5B and the Proprietarian Bank or the Good Dudes Bank or whatever, I'm not saying communal, but I have no problem pushing forward our projects all together. So more smart investments, because when it crashes, remember, we don't want to be holding on to digital anything. We want to have real assets that are productive. Effectively, if you have to turn it all off and it goes into like a global recession, depression, we want to be sustainable and sufficient and doing our own thing in the real world, because it could totally happen.
We really want to own property, right? I mean, we want to own property and things that are truly valuable, not just theoretically. I think Brandon characterizing it as the online gambling is a pretty accurate way to say it. But if you win, like he also said, you can turn that into actually tangible assets. So there's a value in it for sure.
Yeah, I think we want to be potentially exposed though, because what could happen is happened a number of times, especially if they want to devalue a currency near to zero, is you want to hop onto the next one. And if they are lining up some coins here to be an inflation hedge, then those will go up and those will become the store of value as they destroy the other. Now, yeah, you want to have productive assets, real world land, productive land. So that's, I've said this for a while, and that's part of what the shopping is looking for a property, a Good Dudes campus that we could set up and we can get to work and make sure that if things go off, that we're prepared in this great offset, that we can actually front run their outcome to a positive outcome. And if you look at the photos and the videos from the Great Depression, fundamentally it was just they didn't have cash. They still had trucks and they had orchards and farms, and factories were relatively empty, but just because there wasn't cash. So that's where we go into disinflation, deflation, or recession. Any of those, we have to have alternatives where we can still have exchange, productive exchange. And I think especially then having reciprocal exchanges, value for value, is going to be very important to people. They'll be very alert to getting ripped off and having their savings destroyed.
It does seem like a hedge against this incoming manufactured depression. At least it looks like another depression coming through. And I mean, it appears to be a hedge, but they can also choke it out with regulation too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like what they're trying to do with socialist communists more in power is that they'll just continue to inflate away the debt, right? They have more control than ever before, and they can do strategic defaults. They can obviously fund and give funding to their voting base, which includes not just the Democrats, but it can also include these digital internet companies that are basically following the line of the global homo agenda, so they can give money to both ends while they bleed out the middle class. Sadly, though, we know that small businesses employ 70% of the American public. So if they're not getting SBA loans, if they're not getting the same sort of treatment and kind of free handouts that the others are, that is the direction. But excuse me, let's paint a bigger picture. If the dollar is weak, that is a risk on for the world, and it does usually lead to greater global trade. And Kurt was making a comment, I do think he's also right, that the normal northern hemisphere, basically Western civilization, will not be as rich because we are exporting our inflation to other countries, and so it's a global risk on. So a lot of the third world, second world countries or so can actually increase their economies, which to some degree can be good, especially if you're making smart investments there. I think we should have a perspective that basically has good middle class and upper middle class anywhere in the world that abides by reciprocity and wants to produce true value and exchange it, that we do everything we can to make that mesh network, that decentralized network happen. I think the crypto dudes will get involved. They're looking for safe places anywhere in the world where they want to participate as well. And I've already said over and over that the same governance ideas that we've been talking about for 7 years or so is what they're coming to consensus as, i.e. meritocracy, reciprocity, win-win, smart contracts that are programmed to be fair exchanges, stuff like that is all there.
There's no other place to go if it's going to work. It's an organizing principle. At the bottom of it is all the same. It's usually a matter of being able to move your currency where it needs to be moved at the time it needs to be moved there. Having good people and commons means you don't need your money in an emergency. Money's supposed to be able to be played with in a marketplace. So it shouldn't, your bank account shouldn't determine whether or not you eat tomorrow. It's a stupid way to arrange things. So we're not properly equilibrating capital because we continually measure things by a mono measure. You don't measure your complete wealth by money. It's a portfolio of things, and liquidity and agency, they're all part of it. So we need to be smarter about the balance sheet we're keeping.
Yeah, and imagine if we had everything productive in that manner, then we could actually determine what currency we'd want to use. So there's some really interesting things happening in the crypto space. Ohm is like a bond, which is the liquidity owns the protocol. I'll try to give it a quick explanation. One of the challenges before is there was farming. So you'd deposit tokens, could be ETH or stable coins, and you'd be rewarded in the basically the governance token. What was happening is that it became very parasitic, or you'd have liquidity locusts. They would deposit, they'd get the reward token, and they would just dump it. They'd constantly dump it, so they were getting the yield. Well, this protocol came along called Ohm, and they put it so you bond, and the liquidity is owned by the protocol. So it doesn't have this dumping effect, and it's had this consistent rise in value. The reason I bring it up is that if we did something in Good Dudes to that degree where we controlled the liquidity, basically we have a larger and larger piggy bank. And then maybe we could determine through consensus means and tested for reciprocity of how we'd like to direct those funds. It effectively gets to a point where you have an endowment. Like you have such a large amount of funds that at least in when there is economic activity, so long as kind of the crypto flywheel keeps going, then there will be yields and there'll be returns. And then from those yields and returns, those could be invested. So anyway, that's out there. Kurt wants to bait China into. What do you guys think on that one?
It seems like that's where they're going, right? With a World War III, that Albert Pike, the 33rd degree Freemason, was saying that we're going to have a World War III. I'm sort of expecting them to try to Pearl Harbor us into a war with China, probably involving Taiwan. Of course, that's pure speculation, but hopefully not. But it seems to be where they're going with this stuff. I kind of hope I'm wrong on that one. That'll be nasty. I don't know, though. It might fix the economy. I guess it did in World War II, which is the horrible way to get where you want to go. But
I don't really care who we fight against. I'm just not fighting for the United States of America. I'm not fighting for the globalists. I'm not fighting for Israel, or I'm not fighting for anyone else that doesn't include me.
Exactly. 100% with you.
I mean, the United States of America is a traitor nation. Well, traitor government. It's not really a nation at all. I mean, and that has to be emphasized. Once you engage in the level of treason that the United States of America has engaged in, you never get legitimacy again. I'm sure there's formalists who will disagree with me and say that order is the best thing and maintaining the status quo and whatever, and maybe we can reform it somehow. But no, I'm never giving the United States of America any legitimacy ever again.
Yeah, it is too much backstabbing. I mean, they really did blow it with this stuff completely. I'm with you on that for sure, Eli. I mean, think about it. They used our ancestors to build this country, and then they turned against us. That kind of backstabbing, how can you ever forgive that, really? Or expect that they're not going to do it again? It's the pinnacle of irreciprocity, I guess. Jesus, it's unbelievable. Lord Eli Voldemort. Kurt's taking shots at you from the comment section, Eli. Nice.
Well, you know, they hold eternal grudges, so if we do, that's only reciprocity.
Voldemort was right, you know. Bad guys in movies are always right.
Skulls. Gotta make that skull ring, man.
Skulls for the skull throne.
People should all understand that these are all better options than the trends suggest it's going to get.
Philippe says, give us skulls for money. Now, how about, well, yeah, actually that works. I was thinking about it. I was thinking he was offering money for skulls, but skulls for money is a better idea.
Can have skull coin, exchange it for actual skulls.
It's going to be a new digital currency, but it's the digits of your finger, the bones.
I remember back when Kurt had Facebook, he had some posts on practicality of using shrunken heads as currency.
Same with the British government, not mine. Fuck them all. Yeah.
Well, all Western governments have really shat their nests at this point. And the traditional Western monarchies and aristocracies as well. I can't think of one that's not totally paused. I mean, what have the British royals done but sit idly by and watch their country degenerate into a basket case, if not actively participating or cheering it on with their antics?
Right.
And screw them. Whatever legitimacy they ever had, they have squandered. So we can't rely on these old families. I used to think it was encouraging that both Harry and what's the other one, William, were helicopter pilots. Because of the helicopter memes, but they're never going to do any serious helicoptering. None of them are.
Not the
Eli,
right way,
got
anyway.
Western governments
Yeah, with Echo.
with the Echo.
Yeah, it's a consistent problem.
Yep.
They don't like us. Yep.
They aren't even German at this point. What the hell even are they?
Aliens. Not the fun kind.
Coburg. That's kind of a weird name. It's kind of like a mashup of some other names I've heard.
There's also a consistency where anybody that comes along to try to fix it, anyone that has a good idea, like Kurt gets a swift knife in the back. It's clear they don't want the West fixed. They want the West to sink. So it seems like the plan is back to that Napoleonic War thing of like, let's just wreck it all, come in and just own everything for pennies on the dollar. That's the conclusion I keep coming to. You guys think about that?
And then what do they even own? They own a wreck. What a bunch of idiots. What a bunch of idiots.
Empire of Dirt.
Right.
Well, I was telling Kurt, it's this thing with a dopamine addiction is that it reduces the peaks and the baseline where actually they go after more and more, but they get less and less from it. And I'm wondering if that kind of ties into the same psychopathy and psychopathy of these degenerates, is that basically they can't stop themselves as they get further and further out the addiction curve, right? They want weirder fixations, weirder addictions. And, here we are in the moral middle with relatively healthy, true affect, true affect and true consciousness. Anyway, and then we have true actions as well, right? And we're looking at them like, what the hell are you guys doing? So I think Clown World is just such a great way to frame it, but it might not get to the point that these are highly addicted people that maybe have no ability to stop themselves at this point. It's more than that. We need an intervention to sit them down because they won't even get it. Most of the thing you have to do is you just ignore the psychopath. You don't engage with their behavior because they'll take advantage of any opportunity of engagement for hostility, reversing it, projection, all of this type of stuff to draw even more and more energy from us. That being said, something ought to be done.
I'll say it again, Brian. That's the best survival strategy for right now. But that's given, the gray rock strategy. Don't engage. Don't give them any, any of the drama that they crave. Don't feed into that. Don't play along.
Right.
That sort of stuff. But that being the best strategy is entirely dependent upon the rules essentially favoring psychopaths.
True.
So that's because we live in a system that privileges them, that advantages them, that is based on the assumption that people, let's say, are engaging in good faith. Right. When they're taking advantage of that assumption, they're not following that assumption. where, for example, violent retaliation against any of their parasitic manipulations is
Right.
prohibited.
Yeah.
Where in many cases they're not even guilty of violating a law, but if you were try to stop them, you would be punished by the law.
Definitely.
So that's the best strategy now, given that all of our rules and institutions are tilted in the favor of psychopathic people, manipulative, dishonest, parasitic, exploitative, scheming, duplicitous, malevolent people.
Yeah.
And we've got to get past that. We've got to get rules and institutions that don't privilege them, that don't advantage them, that allow proactive retaliation against them, and even organize and carry it out.
We just need a list of outlaws. They're pretty obvious people. They're pretty obvious people. You can turn yourself in for a trial. Otherwise, you're outside the law. It's outside of the protection of it.
That's a great way. Is they forfeit their protection from the law if they violate it to that extent. Is that correct?
The people can do justice on their own because those are outlaws. We had them in the Wild West. We just make the political landscape a borderlands. I don't know. Go for it. Tread lightly.
Careful what you wish for. Huh?
Well, they were asking for it. You want to play on that landscape with all that money and all that control and all those people? If you step sideways and harm those things that you're pretending you're there to help, then we'll take it out on you and your family. We'll level things out awfully quick. We're not playing for the prizes we're supposed to be playing for. That's all. Because we think we can gamble it, steal it, and take it because we measure it in money. This is measured in blood and soil and people's lives. One of my favorite scenes from recent pop culture, and it is sparse of scenes that break the favorite barrier, is the one in the show Ozark, where the dude is explaining the difference between a redneck and a hillbilly. I won't spoil the scene for you, so go and watch it. I can't do it justice. But it's one of my favorite scenes. And it's about explaining to people that certain people do a different type of accounting, and they win on their terms, not on yours, and you'll know.
Could probably find that scene.
We still have to get over our obsessive restraint. The thing about outlawing, people look at that and the outlaw gets romanticized as being free from consequence. What they don't recognize is that being an outlaw means that everyone else is free from consequence in their engagements with you as well, right? And that's the power that outlawing brings. But we lose that when we pathologically restrain ourselves in those conditions. And right now that's our habit, is we could outlaw all the right people and a bunch of us would still treat them well because we have this conditioned restraint to engage with people, regardless of the harm they're doing to us. So we still got to get over that hump somehow.
Soon as there's an outlaw list, I'm looking for people to offer rewards.
Well, you don't need everybody to be mean to them. You just need 1% to be mean enough to them.
Yeah. The point is we have to be mean to them. We have to be demonstrably mean to them. We have to be willing to not be nice.
The full accounting is punishment.
Right.
They've caused harm, demonstrably so, and it's past anything that can be paid restitution for because it's scaled across peoples. Right. How many people do you get to harm bodily before we harm you bodily? One is the answer, but there's a lot.
We're seeing a fairly large scale harming now. It's going to be interesting to see how that's eventually worked out. Although I don't want to say what that harming is, even though it's fairly obvious, because YouTube will silence us, so won't do that.
I'd like to broaden people's horizons a bit and their scope of harm. They stole time from you when they put you through the government schools that they put you through, like prime time, where you could be learning how to cooperate and gathering capital or taking an apprenticeship or something like that. Hours and hours and hours at your most adaptable. They had you sit down and look at someone who you'd not admire because they make an embarrassing salary just to start. And you already told them that that's how you're going to measure people. So there you are, sitting in a classroom in front of someone who you look down upon objectively. I don't know, it just doesn't go good from the get-go. Consider all that stolen from you. Who's going to pay restitution for that? How are you going to make up the ground that you lost? So as far as I can tell, if you're my age, say in your 30s or say your late 20s or early 30s, like they took half of your life from you. Half. And then probably the other half too, because you believed them and their lies. So I don't know. People, you don't have to be angry. We're correct. You can just exact revenge. And you can do it exactly so that you acquire the restitution necessary to make you whole. If you don't feel whole, you better start looking at this place differently. Because there's what we teach a method to equilibrate. That is to gift you wholeness.
That might be a great place to recruit from, is people that have felt absolutely robbed by this horrible system of, especially the college system. They don't just steal the time, but then they put them in basically unpayable debt, which you can't even get out of by bankruptcy. You have a lot of pissed off people, and for a good reason, and that might be a great source of recruitment.
I'll mutually warranty the education that we give them. If you do the work, you will get better. It's a warranty. Like your college didn't warranty shit. They took your money and said, do your best with this. Don't worry. Your teachers aren't, they're there to teach you. And then you listened, and they weren't there to teach you. They were there to trap you. College, what is it? What do they do when they make college kids work for free? Internships. That's a racket. I hope you could just look into that. How many hours that people who are capable of doing work are doing nothing. They're brown nosing.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I don't know, like necessary hazing or something like that. Teachers do it too. They keep their head down to get tenure. It's like, oh, you got to go through this much abuse before we gift you the ability to say what's on your mind or teach the way you want to. It's everywhere, in every domain and arena. It's not a wonder or a mystery why things are fucked up. They are because we don't do anything right. And we could just start doing things right.
That is it too, right? We could just
better.
start. We could just
we'll teach you how. You have to know what you were purposely not taught. Money economics, behavioral economics, cooperation. You weren't taught those things. They tried in kindergarten, but they failed. And it's the
How long
simple
does that take? It doesn't take very long to teach people, does it?
Oh, I said we need 18 months, but like the more people that get on board, the shorter it takes.
There's a hilarious interview or cross-examination that Jan Helfeld does, I think with Nancy Pelosi, where he's asking her about her opinion on the minimum wage and whether it would be okay to hire somebody for less than minimum wage. And of course, she, denounces it. And then he starts asking her about her internship program, where she has these office interns on her staff that are not paid. Oh, he gets her riled up.
That's funny.
Well, it's it's angering and it's a bit nefarious, because what you're telling those college kids is that, like, not getting paid, they're getting paid in some mysterious capital that's worth more than the money they'd be making in that time frame. That's the sell. And that has to be true. And a lot of the times it's not. Like, they're sorting those people who are very agreeable for the ones that they want, and those ones will be awarded that capital, and everyone else will be spat back out. It's not even a good sorting process. It's more like abusive.
Absolutely, it's experience though. As if you can pay for your more, you could pay your landlord in experience. You could pay your phone bill in experience, right? It's such a scam, dude. It really is such a scam, and it is really very much a violation of reciprocity on every level. And it should be, and it's also a bad sorting process. Like you said, they're just sorting for agreeableness, and they're sorting for your ability to navigate the office politics, kiss the right asses, and that's about it. I mean, there's a few technical.
They're also sorting for your ability to be able to afford to work for free, which is inherently somewhat classist if you want to get down to it.
Well, nobody's looking at the system as a whole and going, how terrible is a system that takes, 16, 18 years to get you ready to be an apprentice?
Exactly.
We should, in preschool, or what's passing for preschool right now, we should give all the kids the marshmallow test, and the ones that pass should just come to us. The rest of them can sit in the classroom, but the ones that pass, we get.
That sounds like a plan.
Change the world.
Super smart. By the way, I've heard that kids who passed the marshmallow test didn't do it because they had some self-control. They just hid it.
Doesn't matter. We'll just use it as a sort.
It does show they're smart.
Yeah, exactly. If they can think one move ahead, they're ahead of the game with the way the game's played now. So we'll take them. The other side, you mentioned the minimum wage. Nobody ever connects those dots between education spending and minimum wage. The higher minimum wage needs to be, the worse the schools are. It's like a clear line. If you come out of years and years and years of an education system and you can't provide enough value for someone to pay you a livable wage, that says terrible things about that education system. I mean, anyone that's arguing for any kind of minimum wage is outright declaring that the school system is a failure.
Absolutely.
And they're probably molesting your kids. So
just a little fucking cherry on top of the abuse pie. Jeez. Think about what we've squandered as a society with all of this. Think about just like what we could have if this bullshit wasn't in order. We could make such a better civilization if it wasn't for this crap. That's the most infuriating part to me. It's always infuriated me since I was a child. We could have such a better world. It would be so easy to do if we just had the right people doing things. We have these obtuse, clunky, old, archaic systems. They don't even work. They never worked, really. How do we trigger the replacement of those garbage systems?
Tell the boomers we'll take care of them, but they can't have any of their extra capital. They have to give all their shit to the generations below them because they blew it. The boomers are nowhere because they blew it. It's like, you guys were in charge, you fucked it up, you went the wrong way, let's turn it around. It's like, you're not going to be involved because your instincts aren't good for this game, clearly, but we will take care of you. It's a trade.
Yeah, on these travels, one of the things that came up, and I told Nick about this on a call, I see places that could be close to where the boomers are retiring as big resources, resource rich. They're going to have a lot of retirement funds and stuff like that. And they're obviously going to want high quality people. They don't want to be frustrated. They don't want their shit getting stolen when they're trying to get repairs done on their house and stuff like that. So it's kind of newly added to the criteria I don't want to be deep in Boomerville, but I think we should be ancillary so we could provide valuable services to have reciprocal exchange, and then hopefully, bring these boomers up to speed. And I do want to tie that into something that even we talked about a bit last week. I keep coming back to this idea around warranty, guarantee, restitution, because it's also at the end of the funnel of the truth test, right? And we know that in cultural Marxism, there was absolutely no full accounting. And that's part of where they get away with all this false baiting and hazard. When you draw a line and go, look, we want a full accounting. What does this cost? And if you're wrong, what does it cost? And if you can't cover that cost, you ain't doing it. And how do we get ourselves into a place, good dudes, proprietarians, anyone else in the affiliated network, if we can get clear about that, i.e. we self-insure, and it should be smart and easy, because we want to insure this best and brightest amongst ourselves. And as we have an insurance fund, you can't tax the profits on an insurance company because of the possible future losses or future payouts. So it's a huge capital vehicle, kind of like the one I was talking about before. It can get to the level of an endowment. And we're the type of guys that we want to insure anyway. There's no reason we should be paying premiums for the idiocy of the clown world that we're in. Our premiums could be a half or 1/3, and we could still probably get by, and then have those funds available in a decentralized manner. That would be kind of the difference. The other part of it, so you have warranty, guarantee, restitution, some sort of insurance vehicle. And I just wanted to talk a bit more, if you guys have ideas about it, of what else we could do that would have that same level of proof. I guess that's what we're going for, is that you're able to back your word up. So you're either going to back it up through violence, or you can, that's where the three were. Brandon, maybe this loops back into production, care, and protection, right? So it's the or else, right? That's why I tied it into is Kurt's Constitution, is that we need to get to a point where it's submitted with an or else. And if we have the or else that's in that, very, very, very large number, it becomes pretty darn easy. So we want a good or else. So in business, the or else, hey, this is my business promise. And if I'm not correct on this, the or else is that, I refund this amount. Here's my guarantee. I'll make it right or whatever. So Brandon, there's a third one though, that's in care. And that one's also tremendously missing, right? There's a little bit in the Chinese model, right, where you pay to kind of, I'm healthy, therefore I'm going to kind of give to the endowment of doctors or whatever. So maybe there's a vehicle there, but that's what I wanted to focus on. We love the triangle, but if you have a warranty or guarantee in the production realm, you have a violence in the protection realm, or defense, it could be there as well. And then we need what's the or else in the care realm.
It's loss of attention. Relationship breaks down. Disassociation. Ostracism, boycott. Those are the punishments. Those are your threats. Well, it's all you have to offer.
What are the positive? I mean, those are good on that side, and or else. Offer a better care. I mean, I think in terms of us going through falsifications, we probably would have a pretty good list within the good dudes and proprietarians of better health care, better, health modalities. We already have thoughts on homeschooling and such. That's already natural to our network. So maybe there's some positive ones there.
Care is like attention, hygiene, grooming, care when you're sick, spending time. I mean, it's essentially it's the community measure. When things break down in other realms, you're going to keep them from spilling over. So You keep them separate and in rotation and in trade with one another. That's what keeps them functioning.
While we're on the subject of insurance, could you do like a divorce rape insurance so that you can like shelter some of your assets in a vehicle that only comes back to you after the bitch is gone?
I'm in favor of that. Since I already went through one.
It's amazing how those tilted policies are really subverting the whole marriage market. Just by having bad law in that respect, is subverting the entire thing because men are hesitant. I mean, who wants to get divorce rate? First of all, they take half your shit, and then they also take your fucking kids as well. Jesus, I mean, it's incredible. It's totally unjust. So we have to figure out something for that, for sure.
You can't insure anything by community if you don't have community. So once they break that up, all those social insurances disappear.
Right.
So,
Right.
and until you build it back,
and the government does it.
Right. Until you build it back, you don't get to have them back. It's not going to mysteriously appear out somewhere else. Like you said, it goes from that to government. Then it's not insurance anymore. It's compulsion.
Philippe says we want the lower classes gone, not taken care of. You know, I'm not sure about that. The triangle works as a triangle. You know, lower classes, everybody deserves their opportunity, the equality of opportunity, not necessarily outcome. So we need to do a better job of domesticating. And I think when people, that is not to say all, obviously we're not going to knock salt this either, but we do need to take care of our criminals and we need to take care of the bad underclass. That being said, we know that many of them don't do well sitting through this 16 years of schooling and whatever. They should be off doing something else. So obviously a lot can be changed just in the education. There can be all sorts of apprenticeship, bringing back guilds. Obviously we have a lot of the answers here. So I don't think getting rid of the underclasses, we want to grow the middle class and the upper middle class for sure. And that will naturally take care of probably the bad upper and the bad lower classes as well.
What we need to be doing is constantly replenishing the underclasses with downwardly mobile fuck ups.
Yeah.
There you go. And we want huge comedic falls off of pedestals from those at the so-called heights.
You have to have the right people in the underclass.
Yeah, the underclass, you know, it's a huge sink, but only because we continue to reward it. We keep subsidizing it and rewarding the behaviors that take place in it, and glorifying the behaviors that take place in it. You stop rewarding that type of stuff, and you don't have to smash it. You don't have to kill all the stuff. You just stop. If you want it to stop growing, you stop watering it, right? I mean, we're rewarding all this stuff all the time, so it's out of hand because we keep favoring it. Not because it's out competing us. Not because it's doing anything we can't do. It's growing because we continue to reward it. So, and like you said, we want it there to act as that mechanism of the where people fall down into, right? As soon as we stop rewarding the underclass, it starts to sort itself into the lower class and the undesirables. It can't do that now because there's reward for being in the underclass itself. People lose those rewards if they start to sort that way. So
We've argued this policy for a long time. Reward them for not doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say you could do that, but also paired into, Lucas said, you make smart investments. So and maybe that is a smart investment. I get that. That being said, most of the violence comes from relative inequality. And if you can give them a way for upward mobility, that's obviously a huge talking point for them. And if we give them real upward mobility through proprietarian reciprocity, the dynamics that we teach, so not clown world logic, but real world logic, then they obviously could have a better chance. Let's not forget that blacks in America had a pretty golden century, 1850 to 1860s to the 1960s. And they had a 93% marriage success rate. There were black only towns, colleges, universities, banks, there were doctors, lawyers. They were doing tremendously well. And I would emphasize there are black only towns that whites would not go to. So let's be clear and have a full accounting of this. And it worked out really well for them. Well, what happened? Lyndon B. Johnson, 1960s, brings in the Great Society and starts to offer welfare, in particular, give bonuses to black women that have children out of wedlock. So that starts to degrade their marriage success. Then give them free housing. Start to have the whole drug thing, punishing blacks for longer prison sentences, where they had the private prison industry starts to go at that period. Then you have Hollywood gets into it, and they start doing blaxploitation films, making blacks look like pimps and black women look like hoes. That was their thing. Bring crack cocaine into it. So they have a lot of valid complaints of the systematic attack on them. That being said, there's also the portion of it is that don't fall for it. You should have never given up your family values. You should have never fallen for any of that bullshit, because all of that was degenerate, low impulse control behavior, and you were better than that. Now, we can say that for our own. You can actually say that for anybody who gets sucked into, I'm going to loop back into this, addictive, dopamine-driven, low impulse control behavior. And hopefully we can help teach a lot of how to break through that. Obviously, the indoctrination doesn't help them, because it has them chant that this dysgenic, hyper-consumptive society is free and liberated, right? Rather than just total degenerate, no impulse control, hypergamous, all that crap, right? So the indoctrination is telling them that that is good. And anyway, just getting back to the full accounting of it and making sure that when we take a stand, that we do all the things of reciprocity, that it's productive, fully informed, warranted, free from imposition of costs on others, and voluntary, right? And we'll make sure that we give policies that we can give warranty to. And if we can't give warranty, then we state explicitly that we can't give warranty to this, and that it is a test. And we'll measure the results to see if it is a good policy to move forward with. Go ahead.
I would be really careful about promising people equality of opportunity, because there is no equality of opportunity, and there never can be. There's not equality of opportunity until you have equality of outcomes and conditions and starting conditions. And so this equality of opportunity leads invariably to arguing for equality of outcomes in order to equalize, the starting point where people have that opportunity to succeed. So I wouldn't go down that route. And even talking about upward mobility, the more meritocratic a society is and the longer it has been meritocratic, the less upward mobility it's going to have, because by and large, the merit will already have risen to the level of its ability. So it's where you have non-meritocracy, that you have more potential for upward mobility, because there's a mismatch between merit and status. And I certainly think that that's the case now. I don't think we live in a meritocratic system. I think there is a mismatch between merit and status, very like extent, and one that we could profit from correcting.
The most obvious point I make about equality of opportunity is that opportunity is also an outcome of other things. It doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So the
you guys
correct
make a good
framing-
point.
The correct framing on the equality issue is that equality is always bad. People who talk about equality are always bad people, and there's never any reason to talk about equality. Any good, valid reason to talk about equality, hypothetically, could always be um, put in some other terms, more clearly, more succinctly, more effectively. Um, and just going down the road towards equality is not something we ever want to do. There is an argument to be made, there is a valid point to be made that too much inequality can be a bad thing. But that's very different from saying that equality is a good thing or that we need more equality. Sometimes we need less inequality. If hierarchies are too steep, etc., there can be intense conflict, a breakdown in cooperation, loss of civilizational capital, those kind of things. Too much inequality, but inequality is a good thing. Inequality is what motivates people. It gives people examples to model their behavior upon, and it gives them motivation to do that. That's what inequality does. That's what hierarchy does. The existence of hierarchy and status. It gives people examples to follow, and it gives people a reason to follow them. Every good thing comes from inequality. You can have too much of a good thing. So sometimes you can have too much inequality, and maybe you need to tone it down a little bit. But that's very different from saying we need more equality or we ever need equality in any shape, in any way, shape, or form.
You're saying we need the equivalent of a mercy rule for inequality? That's too much.
We just got to get back to value, right? We want merit because merit produces value, but everyone in the hierarchy can produce value and can be rewarded for producing value. We want to reattach our perception of value to contribution rather than extraction, and that covers a lot of this stuff. That it doesn't matter about where you are in the hierarchy of any endeavor, as long as you're providing value to the extent that you can. And as long as you're being rewarded for providing value to the extent that you can, right? And if you get to a point where you're providing more value than somebody else, that's where we start to look at the steps that merits take. And we're fortunate to be alive at a time where the ways we are capable of providing value to each other are increasing rather than decreasing, right? And so if we focus on value and get away from all this other stuff, we can actually find ways for almost everybody to be value contributing, right? And then all this nonsense about equality disappears because all we're looking at is how are you being valuable? How are you producing value? How are you contributing, right? So, I mean, that takes care of a lot of this. We just got to get back to value.
Get a fair trade for the value that you add.
Right.
That's what we can offer you.
Even aristocratic egalitarianism, which is, I think, Ricardo Duchesne's term for, kind of the uniquely Western aristocratic values and aristocratic systems. I don't think that's a good term, aristocratic egalitarianism. For one thing, it's confusing as heck. Like, it sounds like a contradiction in terms. What's egalitarian about aristocracy? I mean, once you get into it, and he's talking about peers and free men being sovereign and interacting with peers and being having equal standing before the law, kind of makes sense, right? But I think a better way of saying that, instead of saying aristocratic egalitarianism, is, look, I don't care how much higher in the status hierarchy than me you are, I still reserve the right to kill you if you screw me over hard enough. That's aristocratic egalitarianism.
And that's the real problem when equality gets imbalanced. It's right there. Is when that gets too far apart, right? Not on the how much you're getting or how much you're being given. It's when the distance between you and the ability to respond like that gets too great. That's where the imbalances causes problems.
It is way too great right now. It's way too great for anybody. While we're talking about outlaws, you have to put someone in proximity who can carry out sentencing. It's necessary. Decrease the power distance.
Somebody mentioned earlier that there are crimes that are non-restitutable, and I mostly agree with that, but I will partially disagree. There is one way that some of these criminals can make restitution, and that is to serve as an example to others, potentially even greater criminals. So if the example that they are made into serves to dissuade even greater crimes in the future, then they will have restituted their crimes.
I love it.
Yeah, make them jesters, not martyrs.
Nick, your mic is off.
Hey, Eli, you did have one equality there, equal before the law. So maybe that's another frame. And I do like the frame of you can have too much inequality. So to some degree, it's important to give good answers back to their chanting of things that they're making demands for. Same with a crazed girlfriend. At least have an answer that's satisfying for one's own logic. So equal before the law, and you could have too much inequality.
Well, I don't really like equal before the law because I feel like it's like a foot in the door for that word equality, right? People are going to twist it and abuse it, and eventually we're going to get to some other kind of equality through that. I would just say that principle can better be explained or summed up by saying that the law is supposed to be impartial. And so that the impartial administration of the law is the concept we're trying to stress there.
All right. Never let a foothold. You're still on. Go ahead, Nick. You're muted, Nick.
Oh wow! I was trying to say that the whole competition of classes thing just is a massive backdoor for Marxism into the whole mix, and it's probably not good either.
Eli, you have thoughts on that, on the backdoor of classes, or are you fond of class and classism?
Well, I'm a lot more sympathetic to Marxist gripes about the upper classes than I used to be. Mainly since the upper classes have adopted a form of Marxism, or at least propounded for their own motives. But yeah, I mean, the more class conflict you have, the more something like Marxism, an ideology of class conflict, is going to appeal. So the alternative is to forge class cooperation. And for that, you need reciprocity. You need benefits flowing up and down the class structure. They can't just be going one way. They can't just be extractive. They can't just be out of touch elites dictating ridiculous terms to us, demanding exorbitant, extractive rents, and giving us nothing in return. That's not going to work. If they want to keep doing that, yeah, we're going to have class conflict because that's going to go both ways too. Either the benefits go both ways or the conflict. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the classes are just another hierarchy, right? And in any hierarchy, if whatever member of the hierarchy doesn't feel like they're being valued, then the hierarchy is broken. And if any member of the hierarchy is not providing value, then the hierarchy is broken. So then you got to figure out why the hierarchy is broken. So right now, if we have class imbalances or class fights, that means we're functioning in a broken hierarchy because there's exploitation in there somewhere.
It shows up in the military, right? Like as long as you're doing your duty, then you're all good, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can pretty much just assume that anybody who's visibly wealthy at this point is a class enemy. That's a pretty safe assumption, and it's safe because the entire system is broken, and the entire system is extractive and fraudulent and parasitic, and anybody who's doing well under that system is either participating in that to some extent, or they're probably a reflexive status quo defender. Because why wouldn't you defend a status quo that's working for you? So, yeah, I mean, you can pretty safely assume that anybody who's visibly wealthy is a class enemy.
They're certainly extracting more than they're contributing.
Yeah.
So whenever there's that imbalance, there's a problem.
Have we determined anybody? This is through the whole network and audience. Are there any good nobles out there that might be totally ripe for our message, our messaging, what we're talking about, and potentially brave enough to upset the apple cart of the status quo of the other parasitic elites? Like which ones are highly productive and basically would love to see a return of Western civilization?
I don't think all of that exists together. I don't think all of that exists together. I think there probably are non-parasitic elites, but they're probably pretty low-key about it. I think they're all cowards. I don't think they're going to stand up. I don't think they're going to stick their neck out. That's just my pessimism. I could be wrong. I'd be delighted to be proven wrong, but I haven't seen.
Approaching the question a different way, are there elites out there that you guys can see that have the character traits that lead you to believe that if the system switched back to rewarding contribution rather than extraction, they would still succeed and be elites?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, there are some of those, but should they get the chance? That's another valid question.
Till we find better or make better.
Well, I think it's we have a good chance to this middle class and upper middle class. So basically, they're probably out of reach and not on the radar of elites. They're not going to Davos. They probably hardly use private Learjet type stuff. They likely plan and spend and invest quite a bit of money into their big families. So they don't. They're not going to be jet setting and hobnobbing with those that. Most of them don't even have children. I've loved the memes that talk about how many world leaders on the stage right now have no children. Therefore, they have zero real physical investment into the future.
Babyface asked a question here.
Elites are people that have huge influence in either of the means of coercion. And right now we have priestly elites.
Martin, you want to distinguish that from nobles?
I'd have to think about that a bit.
Nobles, I think, are the old aristocratic families. They were drawn originally from the warrior class. Some of them, may not have been actual warriors for many hundreds of years. Uh, some of them had already strayed from that function even back in the days when the on-camp regime was still a going proposition. But that's originally where they came from the warrior class.
They had to literally fight for it. It was not a yeah. That's interesting. But you can also define elites as people that have power and wealth, but actually earned it instead of just siphoned it off by being parasites. And the problem is we don't really have too much of those, it seems. You guys, good to call it.
Well, I would put. There's a few in that category. I would put Elon Musk in the category of people who largely earned his wealth. I know people gripe about the government contracts he gets and call them subsidies and stuff. Whatever. I'd much rather that stuff be going to him and his projects than to some totally pointless pork barrel project with a legacy contractor. So I don't think that's really a fair gripe. But I think, he's largely earned his wealth. And he's also a pretty common sense character. Now, I don't think he's going to stick his neck out for anything too controversial because he would consider that as endangering his core, project. That being the space thing and the renewable energy. So he's not gonna take on anything above and that that's going to endanger that. But within the constraints of that, he will push back with common sense on people who are encroaching on those.
A couple questions. England, the Barons started Article 61 a few years back, but the Queen ignored them. I don't know what that Article 61 is about.
Yeah, so.
How can I become a noble without the Catholic Church because my house is under another house that lost the title of nobles? Again, I don't know. And then Babyface Nelson. Well, to put it another way, what use could be made of an impoverished white Russian duke still scraping by in Iran? I don't know, but I do know that when Eli and I had a visit, we talked about this new noble LARPing or aristocratic meritocracy and giving titles out to people that deserve it. And Eli, you might want to tell them your point. They have to. It is a land title. You made a point about counts. Like if you're in a county that was originally under the name of a count. By the way, shout out to Steve Pender. I did drive through Pender County in North Carolina, so you might have a family that used to be a count. And then there was also a thing that you said you had to be marshal. There have to be a military service mandatory, and that you would fund it. So you would fund your portion of the militia, right?
Yeah. Okay. So an example of this is I saw an interview with some German noble, and he was talking about how his family rose to prominence through strategic marriages. Like apparently they had some ancestor a long time ago who was like, it's better to gain wealth and property by marriage than by war. So that's how their family grew in status and wealth over time. That's cool and all, but that's kind of, you know, stretching the idea of nobility or aristocracy beyond its limits. The martial requirement has to be absolute. If you don't participate, you don't distinguish yourself in that arena, it doesn't count. It's not, whatever it is, it's not nobility. Could be success, it could be influence, it could be wealth, it could be power. It's not nobility. So that has to be a firm requirement. And the same with owning land. Like you can do all the other stuff. You can do business, you can do finance. But if you're not owning the land and managing the land and creating physical commons that are valuable and aesthetic and, long lasting, being managed intergenerationally, you're not doing that kind of stuff. It's also not nobility. So have the land, do the military service, the militia service, whatever the case may be, and those need to be requirements to have the title. But part of that can also be, like in England, they had the regimental system where particular nobles were responsible for keeping up a regiment. Paying for their equipment, paying for their supplies, paying for their consumables, paying for their training, etc. So you could do the same kind of thing with the militia and with your noble titles. If people want to maintain a certain level of noble title, they have to support materially an appropriately sized unit of militia.
That's good. Audience, I hope you got that, and plug that in. Now you have a direction. You have a direction to attain nobility and titles of what we're going to do here at some point in the future. Yeah, if we don't have much else, we could go ahead and wrap it.
I just want to say one last thing on elites, just for definition purposes. From my perspective, elites are emergent. We don't do top-down elites. We don't find them and then make a commons from the elites. We build the commons, and elites emerge from those commons, right? So the elites are those that are deferred to as the last resorters in whatever commons they exist in, whether it's the decider of last resort, the insurer of last resort, the defender of last resort. Those are the elites for that commons, and they scale as the commons grow, right? Then the nobles are just that same thing, but they can be the last resort for all of the above. So just keeping them commons based.
Any last words there, Martin? All good?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning into the Good Dude Show. We appreciate it. If you got something out of this episode, please, in reciprocity, like it and share it with a friend. And we're happy to talk to you. Hope you guys are having a good one. Take care. We'll see you next time on the Good Dude Show.